Today we're with Armand Violi, my good friend. He has an incredible track record. He's sold over $100 million in real estate. He runs a coaching sort of program as well, and he's got a very unique way of doing business. So I wanted to just bring him on, have a open-ended chat.
Yeah.
See what you're doing well, what's working, what's not, and like your sort of lessons along the way. And hopefully that's a good lesson to the people watching.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate having me on.
Oh, yeah. Of course. So I guess to start off with, would you mind just telling the viewers a little bit about yourself? Just like a quick intro, 30, 60 seconds.
So I'm a commercial real estate broker with Other Street Advisors. I'm known for essentially my brokerage team I'm starting out now, which is MHPvalue.com. I specialize in mobile home parks, brokering mobile home parks nationwide. I mainly do deals throughout the Southeast and the Midwest. I'm now kind of moving into the Northeast thanks to a deal that Leo's nice enough to buy right now. And so part of what separates me from other brokerages is I recently transitioned to doing mainly internet style funnels and a mixture of email and text blast marketing, which, it's not that high tech, but it's not well implemented in the commercial real estate space. And I actually think I'm like one of the first brokers that fully has transitioned his pipeline to it. I've done about 100 with the closings this year, probably at like 115 million worth of transactions. And that's in the last 3.5, 4-ish years. No prior experience in real estate, no sales experience. I actually dropped out of college to pursue real estate. And it's an interesting time.
Love it. So, yeah. Can't wait to dive deeper into that. Yeah. So I think just to quickly touch on something interesting that you brought up, being one of like the first people to do social media in commercial real estate. I mean, I think that's very true. Having that sort of courage to go into something and like doing something that's against the norm, so to speak.
Yeah.
We were just talking about earlier that like you and I, like we're brought up, being taught that like cold calling is the right way to get business and like, shaking hands and stuff. But, for you to go into building a brand, like having that sort of pull marketing, I think that's very unique.
It's exactly what you were talking about. Like the biggest thing to me, and we both had this epiphany. I've never bought something from a sales call. Even to this day, I purposely go down people's sales funnels that end with a sales call, and I literally don't buy because of the sales call. Like, I don't want to talk to someone on the phone. Like, I cold call a lot. Like, I don't want someone to sell me on the phone. Yet that was the main way I would find deals, get deals done. Always persuading people to hopefully work with me. And then one day, and this kind of plays into how I really had the mental shift to be like, I need to change how I'm doing things. There's a shoe brand called Stubbs and Wootton, and they make like velvet loafers with like little designs on it and stuff. And they were sending me text blasts. And one like Christmas season, they sent me a text blast that they had like a website discount, and I ended up buying a pair. And I haven't talked to the brand, haven't looked at the brand, haven't seen any of their ads, haven't done anything with the brand. I had no thought in my mind I need to buy another pair of shoes from them. Like, we're talking $500 shoes. It's not like some light commitment. Let me just go buy an $80 pair of sneakers. And I ended up buying 2 pairs out of the blue. And what really hit me right after the fact was like, all right, I had no objections. I didn't need to be sold on the product. No one had to tell me anything. They just had a good enough website with a product that spoke to me of what I wanted, but the way that they've alerted me was sending me a text blast every single month. And I didn't even think to buy their brand, but then they hit me with a text blast at the right moment. And that made me think, well, how many people that I'm talking to on a daily basis that want to sell their mobile home park that I'm not hitting with a text blast at the right moment that would have sold with me? And then very first text blast I sent out, I got almost, I think it was 22, I counted exactly, I don't have it on top of my head now, but it was about 22 responses of people that I had in my database that I cold called, talked to, had conversations with, knew that they wanted to sell in the future. Now, whether that be 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, 2 months, but 22 people told me they sold their park that I already talked to.
Wow.
And 22 people had an average commission check, let's just say 100,000 gross. That's over $2 million. No, actually more than $2 million. It's over $2 million worth of commissions that I missed out on purely because I did nothing else but call.
Right.
And that was where I was like, went crazy, mad scientist, locked myself in a shitty New York studio, just thinking about like,
Right.
I got to figure out like online
Right.
funnel type things. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
And I honestly think that's going to be a huge theme in just our conversation today is just your sort of courage to think differently and to act differently and being able to win in a different way, right? I think that that's something valuable for a lot of people. Which, you know, I guess like going into like how you got into mobile home parks, like, I mean, you mentioned that you dropped out of college. I think that's phenomenal because like the large majority of the world doesn't need college degrees.
Yeah.
What I do doesn't need a college degree. What you do doesn't. Like many people don't. You need that real world knowledge.
Yeah.
But just going back to it. So like, how did you get into mobile home parks?
Yeah. So it kind of plays into how I got into real estate. So when I was in high school, big Grant Cardone fan.
Yeah.
And always like I was watching his Real Estate Mondays kind of. He used to do like a weekly webinar and he'd post a webinar on YouTube. And it was him always going over underwriting. The biggest thing was that was when I first learned about the shift of commercial real estate being focused on income versus like the comp-based valuations of residential we were talking about. And I was like, oh, like I learned how to underwrite. And when I say learn how to underwrite, like I learned how to like, all right, you have a 10-unit building. Here's the rents. This expense of 50%. What's the cap rate? All right. And here's like how you increase the value and things like that. And as I went on, came up with this master plan. Like I'm going to become rich. I'm going to become a real estate syndicator. I'm going to start a fund, all these things. And like everyone else, I thought I had to start in residential and then get into commercial. And when I got my real estate license. I was trying to get into real estate and join a residential brokerage. And the biggest thing was I couldn't spend enough time to get clients because I was too busy in school, or at least I thought I was busy. Really, I was just partying and being an idiot in college, not doing anything productive. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to class and I'm going out drinking. I have no time to hunt clients. So it's either I have to drop out and commit to real estate or stay in college. And then I might never actually pursue the real estate thing, even though I got my license. Decided, well, first I came up with a whole plan of what I'm going to do, dropped out with a plan. I didn't just drop out like, oh, F college, I'll figure it out. Like I had kind of a plan behind it, like how much money I'm making as an assistant for these guys out in Florida. And then I'll work my way up the ladder, residential, and then eventually get into commercial. I did one condo deal where I represented my friend as a buyer. It was like a $230,000 condo, something like that. And after all the splits and everything, my net take home was like $3,200. And I was like, all right, I'm definitely not getting rich with this.
Right.
All that kept replaying in my head was Grant Cardone saying, start big, skip the small shit. And him saying like, you really need to be starting at 32 units. I mean, 16 units, the bare minimum. That was like a number he would always stick on back then. Because he was like, 32 units is big enough. You can get a manager and the money is actually meaningful. AKA there's enough cash flow that you could actually pay for life, unlike cash flow from a 10-unit building.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe $1,000 a month.
Right.
So that got my wheels turning. I'm like, all right, I need to make a change really quick.
Yeah.
I was running out of money in residential to pay my bills.
Yeah.
Because the guys that had me as an assistant, really it was almost like I wasn't even their assistant. It was more like they just liked me, so they were paying me $15 an hour.
Yeah.
So they're like, all right, you got to get a job or start getting deals done. You did your first deal, so
like,
welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
And since I dropped out, of course, my parents weren't going to help me because I told them I'm dropping out, and they said, well, if you do that, we're not going to help you. So it's like, all right,
that's
well,
fair.
I mean, it's fair. So I'm looking for a bunch of real estate jobs, and I applied to, and this plays into the mobile home park thing. I applied to be a property manager at a mobile home park. Now, the person I applied to, her name's Casey. She's the back end / overseer manager for Enon, the guy who owns the brokerage company I'm with now. And she's like, oh, we're actually looking to expand the brokerage team. And the guy who owns this mobile home park, he actually owns a brokerage. He's looking for a young guy just like you. Wow. So I went to that interview with cold call scripts from Ricky Carruth, if you know him from the residential world. Red X lists of how I'm going to be cold calling. Here's my master plan and how I'm going to get rich in real estate. But it was a really good plan looking back. I'm like, man, I was going to make X amount of cold calls per week, door knock, do all these things. I had all this written out. So I went to that interview and I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm working on this, this, and this. I just need enough money so I can make it to the next deal. And I don't need anything from you. Then he's telling me about like, oh, we do commercial real estate. We actually I'm focused on mobile home parks right now. You explain, I'm like, that's not commercial real estate. That's mobile home park.
Right.
Anyways, long story short, I negotiated a $400 a week draw from him. And a draw is essentially a loan to close a deal.
Yeah.
And very first deal, I closed, started in January, closed the first deal in October. My take home from it was $26,000 on the first deal ever.
Nice.
I'm a mobile home park guy.
Nice.
So that's how I got it.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about commercial, like the dollar amount just gets much bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different dynamic, right? Like with residential, it's more so like it's highly certain transactions. It's like if you go under contract, you're almost like certain to close. Like whereas like commercial, it's like longer sales cycle. It may close, it may not. Things come up, people retrade, like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But all in all, like looking back, what would you say it's like a good decision, like residential versus commercial?
Yeah, I would have went straight into commercial first, and I actually think commercial is easier, kind of for the reasons we were talking about earlier. There's less of an emotional aspect. And really it's knowledge and skill on underwriting of a deal, especially for brokering with commercial real estate. Because all you need to know how to do is one, just put in the hours to find clients. And two, just be good enough at underwriting that you have a general idea of what it's worth. You don't actually have to know how to underwrite and build out models for 5 years where you're going to take occupancy and rents and everything like you do.
Right.
All you need to know is like, all right, like I think it's worth around $3 million with some certainty. Let's see if I can get them to take an offer at 2.5. And even if you're wrong by $300K, you still have enough of a spread in there to take a fee. So I'd actually say it's way more money to do commercial deal. Two, it's way easier because you're dealing with sophisticated buyers. Because even if I didn't, like the very first deal I did, I didn't know what I was doing at all. It was actually either 2 to 2.5% on $4.8 million. My take on it was $26K after paying back the draw and splits. Now, the reason why I get such a small split is I didn't know a buyer. So I went to Enon. Enon knew a buyer. The buyer did everything. We had no involvement with the transaction. It actually, the way the phone call went, the seller said, F you, we don't want to work with a broker.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And like in residential, you'd have to work with the people. In commercial, you literally could say, will you pay me for this? Okay, cool. Sign an agreement.
Right.
6 months later, here's a check.
Right.
So it's actually easier. Yeah, I would totally do the commercial thing.
That's
quicker.
Fair.
If I could redo life, I would have been cold calling commercial real estate when I was 15 in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's what I imagine one day my kids, I'm going to have them like 13.
Teach
like,
them cold calls.
No, seriously. Like
That's
13 calling multifamily, calling mobile parks.
Yeah. And quick side note on like cold calling. I feel like a lot of people are afraid of cold calling because of that sort of, I guess the stigma around it. But you know, if you break it down, I guess like how do you get around cold calling like initially? Like how did you get over the hump and like stay consistent with it?
Yeah, a big thing, and if I'm getting too long-winded with my answers,
that's fine. Yeah.
A big thing with cold calling, and this applies to commercial, but just all cold calling in general. First thing is, I recommend listen to guys who are doing it online, like Ricky Carruth. He's kind of a cringy residential real estate guy. Yeah. But he has good advice where if you're going to cold call, he just says you say 1, 2, 3, go, and you just read the script. Like if you have to fail it over and over and over again to eventually be able to speak on the phone. Like my very first 3 months at cold calling, I was like I'd mess up voicemails. Right. Like I was that bad. Like I'd stutter on voicemails, hang up. Right. Like, I can't call them now for 3 months. Like, so now little did I know I can just call them the next day. But you know, like you just have to do it. But one advice I could say for commercial real estate cold calling or businesses, business owners are used to getting called by random numbers because they have vendors, employees, accountants, industry professionals that speak to them, and it's always random phone numbers that call them. So they don't answer with a who the hell are you? How'd you get my number? Meanwhile, residential, when you cold call them, it's like Susan, who's like a teacher at her day job, and she's home with 3 kids, and she's like, how'd you get this number? This is crazy. No, I don't want someone else. But in commercial real estate, like they'll actually talk to you and ask like, what's your reason for calling and things, because they're used to talking to vendors. So like if you're cold calling commercial, it's not that tough. Yeah,
that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to it, it's all in your mind, right? Like it takes, no matter what, it takes a lot of like, I guess, persistence to learn this, right? Everyone's going to be sucky initially. I mean, so was I too. And I think for like the people like that are sort of, I guess, hesitant to start, right?
Yeah.
Like you just need to realize like, hey, okay, what are the most important skills that you need to learn? Okay, cold calling / sales is one of them. I think, I mean, for me, just sidebar is like going and like working in sales for a couple of years, like taught me wonders for just the real world, because everything is sales.
Yeah.
Like it or not, people like to shun on like sales, cold calling, blah, blah, blah. But like, hey, look, that's how business gets done.
Yeah.
And for you to like set aside your ego and recognize that and sort of put in the effort into building up your skill in something as important as cold calling is commendable.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah.
I actually think, and this plays into this. So my biggest mindset of everything, and I think sales revolves around this, it's the ability to like dissect what are the metrics that will equate to success. So this is going to sound like a crazy spin on it.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I was very antisocial. This plays into the sales and phone skills. I went down like the pickup artist rabbit hole where I read the book The Game.
Okay, nice.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Neil Strauss and everything. And the whole pickup artist thing was like, all right, if you get no girls and you speak to no girls, obviously you're gonna never go on a date. Right. It's like, how many girls did you like approach, ask on a date? And all that did was forget about like all like the weird stuff. Like, here's what you're gonna say. Remember this can opener, and there's all these like weird things. Yeah. But the biggest thing was it forced you to create metrics to improve yourself upon. So, okay, if you've never talked to any girls, go talk to 5 girls this week. See what your results are. All right, I talked to 5 girls, struck out all of them. All right, next week, go talk to 10 girls. All right, I talked to 10 girls, 1 actually responded to me. All right, so now you have a ratio of 1 out of 10 is going to be okay. If I need to get 5 good conversations with a girl to get 1 date, all I need to do is approach enough girls to make that 1 solid conversation into 5, and I'll hopefully have a date at the end of it, and then adjust and try and increase my metrics and stats from there. If you think about sales, it's almost the exact same thing. So prospecting is just, how do I get more shots on goal? I need to make more cold calls or make more ads or do more, so whatever, to get more leads. And then now, how many attempts do I have at converting that lead? So it's okay. I can't even speak on the phone. It took me 10 calls just to be able to say a sentence smoothly on the phone. Okay, so now you got to make a bunch of calls until you can make more than 1 out of 10 smooth conversations. It's almost the exact same thing. And like the sales process and the ability to cold call is just setting metrics for yourself, because now you can remove yourself from the results of like the sale and only look at the metrics and think, can I increase these metrics? Now the problem is, if you're tracking the wrong metrics, you're not going to improve yourself, and that's where people get stuck. But it's the ability to identify metrics and increase those metrics. That's really what like the skill to everything is. And I know you think that way similar because you're a systems guy. I'm a big systems guy, so that it all came from like the pickup artist stuff. When I was like 13,
makes sense. I mean,
it's a kind of funny way to look.
It's all a numbers game, right? Yeah. Like no matter where you are in life, it's like, look, if you're a baseball guy, it's like, how many times are you swinging, right? Yeah. So that makes complete sense. Yeah. I guess like to transition as far as like your routine now, right? Like as a broker, I mean, it's like notorious for it being super open-ended. There's like no 2 days are alike and things like that. So like how do you typically like spend your days?
It's tough. Every 2 months, I feel like my processes drastically change. Right. So I haven't been able to get an exact schedule. I would say it's this. I wake up around, I'm not a morning guy. I try and just wake up when I wake up. Yeah. And then just get straight to work. Sure. But I probably handle, first hour of work is like, get up, coffee. Nice. First hour of work is like emails and just get myself organized for the day. And then as long as it takes for now business, which will be anything under contract, renegotiations, important stuff. And then I just end off the day, probably 2 to 3 hours of prospecting. Or when I say prospecting, that could either be cold calls, setting up my next email text blast, game planning this list, cleaning up this database to create this new marketing campaign. But the last couple hours would be that. But the bulk of the day is really just where I'm needed as far as, all right, this contract, what's this renegotiation? Do I have to answer these set of questions from whoever on this contract? Yeah. But yeah, it's weird because I haven't had a lot of free time. Like a big thing that shifted recently since doing the online lead generation is I have more deal flow than I can handle. So now I'm trying to learn what's the best type of deal flow I should, or how to identify which ones I should be committing time to versus not. Right. And it leaves my day so wide open because I'm underwriting here, I'm presenting this deal, I still have these contracts I'm dealing with, so I don't really have a good structure. And I actually think that's a problem. I need to get way better at that.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, that's a good problem.
It's a good problem.
Like,
yeah. I'd rather have too much on my plate than not. But then again, man, it's tough. It's tough.
Right. I mean, look, there's always going to be problems in life, and it's just how much problems do you have, and like what kind of problems are they? And I think it's a huge mindset shift to go from like, okay, problems are actually good.
Yeah.
Because you're solving a problem for someone and you're giving them value.
Yeah.
That means there's going to be more value that you receive. And consequently, like you're doing more business this way.
Yeah.
You know, compared to like someone who's like not doing anything, twiddling their thumbs, being like, oh, you know, not doing anything, right? It's all like in your mindset and like how you shift it.
Yeah. The only thing I hate about having too much on my plate is I don't like not getting back to a client. So what I shifted drastically to listings more so than off-market deals. But one thing I actually regret about that is I think I took on too many listings, and I'm always not behind, but I hate having a client promising them that here's the type of communication I'm going to give you and then not. That's like been the biggest anxiety I've had through this like holiday season, because I'm like, well, how much should I be communicating with the client? What do I even tell them now that like no one's even working through the holidays? So it's like, I don't have a marketing update, but I want to give you like a weekly update. So that's the only thing I hate about having too much on my plate is I hate neglecting a client. Because I'm like, if you signed with me, you're my priority. And that's where I'm like, oh man, I have all these deals I got to present on. I'm underwriting these deals, but I'm like, no, I got to talk to these clients first because they are exclusively signed.
Makes sense.
But I know it's kind of random, but.
So how do you make sense of your chaos? Like how do you get, you know, like order in your day? Like, you know, if you're overwhelmed, like how do you sort of refocus your mind?
I have the agenda app on my iPhone.
Oh yeah?
And I just speak to it and say, put this on the agenda. And I try and I make a to-do list. That first hour I'm talking about. Yeah. I make a to-do list of like, here's all the important things for the day. And I just try and get those done before I do any like general work such as prospecting. Right. Because really as a broker, like your only job is prospecting ultimately. You know, prospecting and then getting deals across the finish line. So
yeah. And how much of your day would you say is like task-based versus like strategy?
That's a good question. You know, I would say this doesn't equate to 100, but I'd say 60% task-based and 100% strategy. The reason why I say that, every hour of the day, I am trying to think, is there a better strategy to everything that I'm doing? For example, like right now, a huge thing I'm going through is like, how am I going to segment out? I have so many financials coming in and presenting on financials. Right. And then I have to follow up with the people I presented on to try and convert to a listing or a deal. And then of those, if I can't convert to a listing, is it worth trying to show off market versus keep trying to convert them to a listing? Right. There's too much of that going on right now that like I'm trying to figure out strategically, should I stop doing so many presentations on the front end? Should I be hiring someone to take on the follow-up, and then what does that look like? Like I'm very scattered, but it's been a huge scatter since the online stuff kind of took off, because it really is too many deals to handle. And then it's tough, but strategy is like the most important. I'm constantly going through different, like my brain is probably like 80% strategy. Like I know the actual daily tasks I do, honestly, it's probably like 70% tasks. Makes sense. But I mean, really my thoughts, if I really tally up like my thoughts throughout the day, I mean, from sun up to sundown, I'm thinking strategy. Like even today, I'm thinking like, was this the right strategy? How I structured my vacation? Like I was like, did I structure this right between the work I'm doing and this podcast? Because I felt rushed to get here, and I'm like, but it's 3 PM. Why do I feel rushed? What am I strategizing wrong of the day? I don't know if that makes sense. I'm kind of bouncing around a lot.
I hear you. No. I mean, when it comes to strategy, it's tough because like you're trying to make sense of something that's intangible. Yeah. Right.
That's the number one hardest thing about being like entrepreneurial. Yeah. It's like, all right, you have so much time to do anything. So what do you put your time towards?
Exactly.
And then is that the best use of your time? And then now you're already down that path. Should I switch? But then it's like, wait, but I switched paths 7 times in the last 3 months.
Right.
Maybe I need to stop switching and just stick with one. Is this the right one? Shit, should I go back to what I was doing?
Right.
And it's
and then there's the actual execution, and then what comes of it too.
Yeah.
So I guess like speaking of that, so like one system that you have designed very well is the sort of the marketing aspect, right? Like how you're getting like the
nothing like low
all
motorcycles.
All good, man. Yeah, it's all good. So okay, so speaking of systems, like you have a very good sort of marketing system, like dialed in. Like you have like a whole funnel and like how you get leads, how you like talk to them, how you reach out. Like so just like explain that quickly. You know what it is. You know, I mean, I obviously know, but just for them.
Yeah. So the biggest premise of, and you know, these are a lot of buzzwords. So let me kind of break this down for like easy to understand than how I transition into what I do. So ultimately in commercial real estate, the biggest thing about commercial real estate versus any real estate is that there's the added element of the owners of the real estate is usually behind an entity or a company. So the idea of automated research and paying for a program that just finds you good data, like in residential, 90% of the time it's owned by a personal owner, usually. Now, there's investors, whatever, but most of the time it's an owner. You could buy a paid list, and that's essentially your database. And you have to think, how do I generate leads off of this database? Okay, I'm going to cold call them. I'm going to send mailers. I'm going to door knock. I'm going to do whatever to generate leads. Commercial real estate, the added component is, well, all right, I have the owner entities. Now I got to find the owner of these companies and then build my database from there. And then now I need to figure out how to generate leads. And obviously generating leads on an out-of-state asset class, a little bit harder because I can't just go door knock them. Everyone lives in a different state. The guy who owns this North Carolina property lives in Missouri. I don't know.
Right.
There's an added component to it. So I built my database and still do to this day with manual research, manual cold calling. Now, people buy lists and people use dialers, but the problem is they have a messy database and ugly database. I'm getting a little long-winded. Let me think where I was going with that. The original question was, how did I develop the marketing system?
Just the system, yeah. I mean,
I built a database and I had decent success cold calling and doing what everyone else does: research, cold call, research, cold call. Bought some paid lists, but they're always crappy because it's commercial and what else in the added component.
Right.
Just make tons of calls. Sloppy database and everything. The biggest issue was I got to a point where the way I'd stay in touch with people was I'd call them once a quarter, once every 6 months, something like that. And then I'd always put in my dashboard in my little CRM, like, all right, follow-up call, quarterly call. Eventually that dashboard got too big. I couldn't actually keep up with the calls while I had deals. So I'd go through these waves of, I have all these deals under contract. I'm executing upon these contracts, getting across the finish line, get behind on my follow-ups, close the deals, boom. And then I'd go through 3 to 4 months of getting caught up on the follow-ups, building more deals. And it's a cycle. Bunch of deals, close. Low point for 3 to 6 months, bunch of deals, close. And then eventually got to a point where I started getting a handful of calls where it's like, oh, I sold 2 months ago. Oh, I just sold. Or, oh, sorry. And I'm thinking like, man, I'm like missing out on actual deals. And then that's where like I got hit with that text blast idea. And I'm thinking, all right, something's to this. I got to be able to reach everyone in my database all at once. And then I found out on Crexy, you could send out like an email blast. And this sounds ridiculous, right? Because it's so easy to know, like you could send an email blast. But like the way we had it structured was our company managed email blasts because we have like a shared company database at the time. I have my own separate thing now. But we'd always wait on the company to send out an email blast, and we as brokers would respond to clients and do the one-on-one. And I was thinking, like, I need to be able to send all my people an email blast from me instantly. And then I did that through Crexy, and the amount of responses I got on the like, little Crexy email blast was insane. Like, even though I didn't get that many responses, I'd noticed, like, all right, I sent out 5,000 emails, and I got 2,500 opens. I'm like, I couldn't even reach 2,500 people in a year. Just think about all the left messages and things like that. And so basically all of this and mix of that and research online eventually came up with a plan of like a blend of email marketing to text blast marketing, and then a few like higher level things of how I could automatically filter my database through sign-up sheets online. So if I wanted to know, let's say I had a listing on Crexy. I had 300 leads look at a listing on Crexy.
Yeah.
I called each one of them one by one. It'd take me forever, and then like 80% of them are a waste of time. But I'd always find like one or two good people out of Crexy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I can't neglect the one or two good people and just not call. So I realized I could email all of them a sign-up sheet to get on my buyer's list. And on that sign-up sheet, if I put one of the selections, are you a current or prior mobile home park owner?
Right.
They're instantly a credible buyer, which means there's someone I should also target with ads for brokerage because they own a mobile home park.
Yeah.
So like all of a sudden I'm increasing my database and following up with buyers with the click of a button, and now automatically targeting them with emails and text blasts because I have a sign-up sheet that's saying what type of deals you look for, unit size, all this BS, and mobile home park owner. People sign up on Crexy, that automatically gets built through the marketing engine of Crexy in my deals.
Yeah.
I get 300 new emails and text messages. They fill out this buyer's list, which marks them in my database.
Yeah.
My database starts to shoot them emails and text blasts based on them being a mobile home park owner or what regions they're looking for. That brings me more deals, and it's like a never-ending cycle now where it just exponentially kind of grows upon each other.
Yeah.
I'm dumbing it down, though. I still have to actively get in there, write the email blast, write the text blast.
Right.
But it really ramped up like super quick. Like it went from me juggling 3 or 4 deals to like 50 deals in my pipeline that I'm honestly like way too spread thin on right now. I'm trying to figure out the right strategy to go about.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it seems like, I mean, this is like a one-to-many funnel that you've sort of like developed through necessity. Right? I mean, you're just like getting too many businesses like that you have to follow up with and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good that your approach was more so like, okay, let me build this out of necessity versus like other people, they're doing it in the sense that like, okay, I want to invest in this for the long run and just follow through with it.
Yeah.
So as far as like the digital side and like social media, I know you also like do vlogs and stuff. Like I've watched a couple of them. They're really nice, like really well edited and things like that. And I think one thing that like we spoke about offline is just, okay, sure. Like your vlogs, they might get like 200 views.
Yeah.
Like, sure, that's fine. But they're 200 super high quality views. They're coming from your emails that you send. Like I get your emails all the time. Like I follow up with them, and like these are mobile home park owners. So like your ideal client watching it, watching you do your thing and like being good at what you do. And that just builds credibility in ways that you can never imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important to like go above the surface, beyond the surface level, and being like, okay, having the courage to have low views, for example, like in your video, and like being creative, like trying new things out with like the text blast.
Yeah. What's been interesting and a big learning thing for myself was that all of the vlogs and I posted a bunch of dumb stuff on YouTube, but then I did like a bunch of real estate vlogs. Now the real estate vlogs ended up at first getting me a bunch of people online that wanted to get into commercial real estate. So now that actually developed into me making the whole like free guide and then monetizing that with this mini course that I have / coaching thing. But that's really just a side thing. It doesn't even make, it doesn't make money. It's basically a side thing. A few $100 here and there. But what was interesting, and I learned this later on, once I started doing calls to action through text and email blasts, the call to action conversion rate only was successful because I had the branding of videos behind me. Now, these videos never directly correlated to them clicking on the call to action. But when I asked them to call, when there was a call to action through emails and text blasts, when there was a credibility of a year and a half, 2 years of videos, that is why they click on mine versus, and I saw this in live. So with other Street Hour company email blasts, I told them, you need to get a sign-up sheet on the website. Like, why do we have a website people click on and it doesn't even give them the option to sign up for an evaluation? Like, why is, like, it says get your free evaluation. Why isn't there a button in the sign-up sheet? Like what? So if someone wants us to sell their park, we don't even know how to contact them. They're telling, they want to tell us. We don't even give them the option to tell us on the website. So I'm like, guys, get a sign-up sheet on the website. Now they did it terribly, and at the time I was trying to actually do this marketing stuff for other Street, but then we just didn't see eye to eye. So I was like, all right, first I didn't even know if it's going to work. So I don't want to embarrass the company. So let me just come up with this MHP value idea and do it. But when I did it now, we actually have because I told him put a sign up sheet, and we told our marketing guy on the other street to set it up, and the guy actually did it like word for word, exactly like mine. Nice. So I actually get the A/B testing. Unknowingly.
Right.
And the conversion rate of the company blast having 25,000 emails and me only having 12,000 emails, it almost gets no signups. Mine gets signups every single week without me doing anything.
Interesting.
And that all came from, and I've gotten, so for example, the guy with Shady Acres, he called me because he watches the vlogs.
Right.
So like I actually got to see live from the exact same call to actions. How mine worked and the company ones didn't because I have video branding behind it.
That's huge.
So you know who's calling you to action over the internet with mine. Meanwhile, you don't know who's calling you to action with theirs.
Yeah.
So
that's huge.
Just to tie the YouTube or just video content.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess like, so speaking of this, I mean, what my takeaways are is just like having the patience to invest in yourself and like to build these things out. And you know, as like entrepreneurs, like which I'm sure like a lot of people are like trying to go about this, it's tough. It's not easy. It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So to sort of like change gears really quickly for you, like your mindset, like when you're going about your work, you obviously have off days like everyone out there.
Yeah.
How do you rebound from your off days? Like how do you refocus your mind, get motivated, like just, you know, do the thing that you're supposed to do?
It's never really been a struggle for me.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I'd say if the purpose that you're driving for is big enough, then working to it. Where I get struggles is like purpose. So for example, I'm actually going through a mini existential crisis right now of like listings, and was taking listings worth it? Because the way that this vacation played out was I was almost overtaken by anxiety of not getting back to clients. And I've never had that issue before because I used to always do off-market deals.
Yeah.
And off-market deals are great because it's like someone can reach out and say, hey, I'd like an offer on this. Like bring them a couple offers. They don't like it.
Right.
I just don't have to call them back for 2 months. And maybe when I feel like working, I'll call them back. Now, I'm not like your go-getter. Like I am though. So if I believe in what I'm working on, I'm like a shark. But I'm also the type of guy that's like, close like 2 or 3 deals and like I'll see you guys, and like, you know, I'm taking a month off, you know? Like I don't take it off, but like I'll work on just my marketing plans and strategies for the future and kind of neglect like current business, not in the sense of current business like stuff under contract, but like I'm not going to actively be like hunting, cold calling more deals now for like the next month because I want to go work on this.
Makes sense.
But yeah, the motivation to work, I'm very up and down with work. I'm not like your stellar, like here's how you should run a business. Like I actually think like if someone did the processes in the free guide that I have, if someone actually did that consistently, like I really think someone should be able to get to like literally just do the book, forget about the coaching course and all that. Like everything in that free guide, if someone actually just did it, figure out their metrics and how many numbers they can get per day or whatever, and then maybe hire out a couple VAs just to increase those numbers and research rates. Like, dude, someone should be able to get to like sourcing and brokering and wholesaling like easily 30 to 40 million a year. Because like without that, I was doing 15 to 20 mil a year.
Right.
And this last year, which was like the worst year ever with the rates and everything, because everything that closed this year was honestly under contract where you develop that when the rates were the worst. So like this technically was the worst year of closings for people. And I still had 4 closings. It's supposed to be 5. One just got delayed till like right after this new year. But like I was still, I want to say like 18 million worth of transaction volume. Yeah. And that was like pretty good. And that's not like the pipeline that was built from the online. Like, well, no, it still was all built from online. It's hard to say, but someone should be able to, like, if someone actually did everything that I do in the book and they do it consistently without taking like a month off in New York City, dude, like, it should be, it should be.
Yeah, easy. Consistency, right? Consistency is key. Which I guess like on the flip side too, I mean, if you had to like summarize it into, I don't know, like 2 or 3 principles that guide your success, like what would they be? Like what drives your success?
Efficiency, identifying metrics or KPIs, whatever you want to call it, and God, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Those two for sure. Like, what's the most efficient First
Mm-hmm.
of all, what's the KPIs that actually move the needle?
Yeah.
Because my biggest thing in business was biggest thing I had even with the company and still being involved with the team at the time. Now I'm kind of my own thing, but all the KPIs we track aren't the KPIs that actually move business. Like every form of tracking we would do is not the form of tracking that equated to more business. So I'm like, why are we tracking this? And then now we're spending time trying to please the tracking for the company. We got to hit these metrics.
Right.
And that's actively making us do less deals. So I'm like, okay, these are the wrong metrics. That's the first thing. Like you can't even, unless you, like it's amazing how many people go through business without actually understanding what metrics move the needle. Like they just go through the motions of their business.
Right.
And they do it with some level of success. But like so many people, it's